call this meeting to order at 3:31. Let's see. We'll just start with roll call. Anderson?
Here.
Bork? Gade, here. Grimm?
Here.
Harrelson?
Present.
Krylov? Is that you? Okay, perfect. Murray?
Here.
Shetty?
Here.
Silman? Smith?
Here.
And Traer.
Here.
Wonderful. Alrighty. And then staff members present.
Sarah Gardner, present. Oh, I'll speak for all the staff since they're unmiked. Daniel Bissell, Megan Hill, and Diane Platt.
Wonderful. We will get approval of the minutes from the prior meeting. Our, let's see, the meeting date is December 2nd, 2024. Is approval of the minutes okay? Any corrections needed?
Shetty moves to approve.
Smith can second.
Okay, all in favor of approval of the minutes?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, motion passes. Let's see, agenda, hold on, I guess. Members of the public. Members of the public who would like to speak regarding items not on the agenda are welcome to address the commission for up to 3 minutes. Due to public meeting laws, we commissioners cannot engage in discussion or take any action on an item not already listed in the agenda. That means we can listen to your comments but not comment on or discuss them at this time. Any topic you bring up will be considered for inclusion of future agenda item or more discussion. Anyone from the public that would like to speak? Okay, must have a lot of members that are going to be presenting, so wonderful. Let's start agenda item 5A, welcome and introductions.
Yes, so we're joined today by 2 of our 3 new members, and we wanted to create a little time to allow them to introduce themselves, and then for each of you to introduce yourselves as well. And much like with public comment, we'll try to hold it to about 3 minutes per person. But yeah, I'm interested to hear what you include in your 3 minutes. Nadia, would you like to kick us off?
Sure. First of all, it's an honor to be a member of this august body. It just looks wonderful. It's wonderful to be sitting here to begin with. I volunteered for this after the election because there was a need to take action locally. And so it was a real breakthrough for me because we've been sitting pretty in Iowa City for the last 10 years. And somehow that rattled my cage, as it has many other people, so I was really thrilled to be appointed. I am currently still a certified climate project presenter.
Recording in progress.
Sorry, go on.
Good. I'm glad it's in progress. I'm a climate project presenter. That's what it was called when it was founded by Al Gore. His 365 slides with which he battered us in Nashville after the Inconvenient Truth movie came out. I have led those in the U.S. and in Russia, in Siberia, in Vladivostok, in Moscow, when I was working there. And so that's kind of at a grassroots level, but I was also part of climate, but really we called it environment, work in Jerry Brown's first 2 administrations, where I worked on things like one project which was kind of a quasi-failure, but not really, which was getting the public utilities to use their escheatment funds to fund, which nobody really was aware of how many millions of dollars were there, was for them to use them to fund insulation for seniors and for the underprivileged when we were trying to save energy after canceling Sun Desert, which was a nuclear plant. So that's like an example of what I worked on. So working on a municipal level really turns me on after looking at this great big juicy thing, and I'm looking forward to this year of this being updated and seeing the progress that's been made and the new opportunities. So thank you for the honor. Nice to be here.
Welcome.
Well, I feel I should apologize initially for bringing the average age of the commission down considerably. But I'm looking forward to your generations, mostly you're about in the same generation, I think, looking forward to that opportunity. It's been 10 years now since I taught environmental ethics. I wrote a textbook. It's still in print in the 3rd edition. But I'm a bit dated in that respect and have learned a good deal here since I've been in Iowa City for 4 years and became a climate ambassador. And so I went through the process of being re-educated in the local issues, and I appreciate that a great deal. I'm looking forward to being a part of the process. I think I'm going to start by listening mostly, but I trust that you'll bring me up to date.
And I'll just add, you may recall in our last meeting, we heard a presentation from Oak Knoll about their composting program. Robert was key in helping them apply for that climate action grant. Great. Jamie, would you like to kick us off?
Oh, sure. Well, I want to say I'm honored that you're joining our commission. This is really exciting, and I feel like me personally, I have a lot to learn from both of you too. But yes, I'm Jamie Gade, and I work at Johnson County Public Health, and so I'm really interested in the intersection between climate and health. There's a lot of work to be done there, and there's not a lot that we've done as a health department really to do that. And so I'm sitting here and I'm learning a lot, and I'm trying to bring a lot of what I'm learning back into my work. And you know, it's been great. It's been, yeah, there's a lot to learn, but. Let's see, I've been on this commission for the last 1.5 years-ish, I want to say. 2 years? Hold on. 2 years now? Oh my goodness. It's been 2 years. That's just flown by. But yeah, it's been wonderful, and I've got to meet a lot of really wonderful people on the commission. So.
Hi there, my name's Brenda Shetty, and welcome. We're really glad to have you. As Jamie said, I think we can all learn from each other here and learn a lot from the city and what's happening. I'm a program manager in the Office of Sustainability at the University of Iowa. I've been appointed as the university representative on the Climate Commission, and I've also been here for 2 years. I've lived in Iowa City for about 11 years now, and I'm really proud to be a part of this community, and there's so much good work that's happening, and I love being a part of the municipality and the action that's happening here too. So, welcome.
Yeah, hi. I'm Zach Harrelson. Yeah, just echo the same things that they've already said. For me, I work up at Collins Aerospace. I studied physics. I kind of always had an interest in green technologies, mostly for the cool factor, I think. And then in graduate school, when I started seeing data and like learning more about climate science, that sort of activated me even more about sort of the reason behind green technologies, right? So then I worked for a few years in green energy and wanted to move back to the Midwest. And so as part of, you know, continuing my climate action, I also went through the Climate Ambassador program and just got really excited about all the things that Iowa City's doing and took the next step to continue that on the commission here, yeah.
Hi, welcome. I'm Wim Murray. I work at Mid-American Energy, and I am appointed to be on this committee as a Mid-American Energy representative. As the energy provider for most of Iowa City, they really want to partner with the city on climate initiatives. So Mostly, I'm probably here to give opinions for Mid-American, but I also personally am a resident of the city of Iowa City. I've been here for over 20 years, and so I have a lot invested in our community.
Hi, welcome. Like everyone else has said, it's a really collaborative commission. I really enjoy it, so welcome. So my name's Angie Smith, and I guess, like many people, probably am really concerned about the climate and our planet, and I read a lot about it, and Dr. Ayanna Elizabeth Johnson had this Venn diagram about what are you good at and what are you engaged with and what interests you, and through reading some of that, I became passionate about active transportation as a way that we could all do a little bit for the planet, and so I consider myself kind of a transportation advocate and really enjoy being on the commission. It helps me stay engaged with all the exciting things that are happening in our community and being informed about all the great things we're doing. So that's why I wanted to be on the commission, but welcome.
Hi, I'm Mike Anderson. I think I've been on the commission for about a year now. I'm still very much learning. Welcome, you guys. I'm kind of in awe of the experience you're bringing to us here. It's awesome. I came at this, the interest in sustainable technologies through science fiction, frankly. I love science fiction. I love sci-fi novels and so on, and my background is as a journalist. I got to go to Standing Rock in 2016. That was a hugely eye-opening experience for me. And yeah, I've just seeing how there's ideas that exist on the pages of fictional novels that I've read that are applicable, and they seem like crazy ideas, but they're not. They're solutions to problems that we have right now, and it's just for me wanting to contribute to bringing some of these ideas, forward, and certainly in the climate of the politics that we've been in the last few years, I certainly wanted to get more involved. So I'm still very much learning. So thank you, and yeah.
My name is Ben Grimm. I'm a manager with Iowa City Community School Districts in the Facilities Department. I've been on the commission for a number of years now. I do represent the district, and part of my responsibilities is sustainability within the school district, and then obviously working with Sarah and coordinating activities between the school district and the city. So.
I'm reminded all the time what a wonderful group you are to work with, and today's no exception. Our third new member isn't here today, but she will hopefully be with us in February. Her name is Emma Bork, and she's a second-year student at the University of Iowa studying environmental planning and policy. So we'll try to set aside a little time in the next meeting for her to introduce herself as well. And welcome, Nadia and Robert. We're so glad to have you with us today. We promise to get you seated on equal footing here.
Yeah.
So then we just have a couple items to run through for additional announcements. One, as you may recall from last January, or you may not, it's been a whole year, we always include just a quick reminder, a summary of the bylaws and the key responsibilities of the Climate Action Commission. We don't have to read through that today. It was in your agenda packet for you to review. Does anybody have any questions? I'm guessing not, since we've spent a lot of time with the bylaws recently. And then Ty, who always helps us set up with these meetings, was so tickled to see that we also included our annual reminder to speak into the microphone whenever possible. And he encouraged me to make it not just a once-a-year reminder. So good job using the mics today. And then in terms of action items from the last meeting, the first was for staff to follow up with how other organizations can support the city's legislative priorities. You might recall when this question came up in the last meeting, I was like, good question, this has not come up before. That was the response when I brought it to the city manager's meeting as well. And basically the general guidance was anyone who's interested in supporting, there's no formal process for doing so. You're just free to call the state legislatures or the state house and express support for things we're putting forward. And if any of you would like a number to the Capitol switchboard, we're happy to provide that I should have written it down ahead of this meeting. I did not, but I will get it to you. Why don't I send it out in a follow-up email? Okay.
Sarah, do you mind if I ask a question?
Yeah.
I think the priorities that we mentioned were like the community solar enabling legislation and something more general about clean energy.
Yes, there is continued support for clean energy and the adoption of more recent building code standards. Actually, as we were discussing in our meeting today, as it is now 2025, that means Iowa's building codes are officially 13 years out of date. Yeah, so we would like to see them adopt a more recent code.
Do you know if those are posted on the city website anywhere that we can see like the wording if we?
They should have been included in an agenda packet for the council itself. Those are big agenda packets. Like, why don't I get you the exact wording for that? Sound good? I'll add that to the follow-up email as well.
Great.
All right, and then the other item was staff were going to follow up with Transit about presenting to the Climate Action Commission. I did connect with Darian and suggested that it doesn't necessarily have to be her, it could be anybody on her staff. We're looking at probably April or May at bringing them in, and we'll continue to talk to her. And I think as it gets closer, I'll just ask if you all have some specific questions you'd like to have addressed, and that may help us figure out which staff member would be best to join us for that meeting. And then just a couple other notes. One is that some of you may have received it yourself. The city last year conducted a Polco survey of, it was basically a resident satisfaction survey, but also a way of gauging interest in things like the city assessing a local option sales tax. The results of that have come back and are going to be covered in detail at tomorrow's work session with the City Council. I wanted to put it on here so that you all could be aware of it. There are some intersections that are very interesting for climate in those results. I will send you, as long as I'm sending one follow-up email, why not make it a smorgasbord? I'll send you a link to that recording as soon as it's available in case any of you have an interest in looking at it. But I will say one thing of particular note in that survey. We had the ability to add 2 custom questions to the end of it. There was a whole list of standard questions to go out, and then there were 2 custom ones. And it was opened up to all city staff to propose one. And Climate Action actually put forward a question about commuting habits to see if we could get a more detailed view. And we were really lucky. We got to be one of the 2 questions included. Just so you have a little background on it, our thinking behind this was the only data we have right now to go on for understanding how people commute throughout the city is to use what's known as American Community Survey data, which is administered by the Census Bureau. It is a sampling, it's not a true census. They send out questions to a select number of community members once every 5 years, and they use the numbers they gather to project what the ratio might be among the entire community. And the commute data in ACS that's been offering up in the last few years, as we dug into it, is just it's a little difficult for us to work with for a couple reasons. One is that it is just a survey or a sample survey like that. And when they do it, they do the sample 1 week out of the year in that 5-year period. And they ask respondents to say, how did you commute to work this week primarily, right? And as we know, on this cold, cold day, how someone commutes to work today may be very different than how they commute in the summer. In addition, ACS has recently, for some reason, combined walking and biking into one response, whereas it used to be 2 separate responses. So there wasn't a good way for us to understand who was walking versus who was biking. And also, we were interested in particular in people who may do some of these things some of the time rather than all the time. Partly because, as you know, we're always promoting an all-of-the-above strategy, right? Like, we want people to have multiple modes of transportation and be able to access them as their needs or inclinations fit that particular day. But also, I would say the biggest data gap for me when I look at ACS data is understanding, and with apologies, I wish there were better terms for this, but the terminology that's usually used is what's known as captive versus choice riders. And captive riders are riders who use a particular mode because they don't really have other options, right? Whereas choice riders are riders who may be taking the bus or biking or walking because it's a choice for them. They have other options, that's what they're choosing. And ACS doesn't really give us a way to filter between those two. So we proposed a custom question that just asked people averaged over a year. So rather than thinking about this specific week, how many times a week did they commute by these different modes? And we broke it down to 5 times or more, which is probably your dedicated riders who are using it every day, whether by choice or otherwise. And then we had 3 to 4 times a week, 1 to 2 times a week, and not at all. And the results that we've gotten back from that in aggregate seem to track with what ACS was telling us, so it helped do some ground truthing there. But it also provided us a really interesting lens into what the choice users of these different modes might be in proportion to one another. And I think some really useful insights in particular as we think about encouraging people to use our fare free service more, that we can roll into some of our marketing efforts. So that is my rather lengthy pitch as to why you might want to listen to this 80-question survey for this one question at the end. But when you get the recording, you can listen to it at 1.5 times the speed. So, and we'll try to bring just some updates from what we hear in that to the next meeting as well.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
This is Gade. I am wondering, are you able to disaggregate that too by different demographics of who's answering the question?
Yes, we are. So we're not quite sure to what degree we can manipulate the raw data, but we are very interested in doing so.
Yeah, okay, great.
Yeah, because who were the survey recipients and how did they get access to the survey?
There were some targeted households. There was a sampling that went out that were mailed to them. And then there was also an electronic option that was sent out through various communication channels. And then the company that conducted the survey itself weighted the responses so that it would be reflective of the community and be a truly scientifically valid survey. I'm taking it you were not one of the households that got it mailed.
I don't recall filling out a survey, and I think I would have paid attention to it. But it did make me wonder how we access all community members. And so, yeah.
Excellent questions, thank you. All right, and then just one other item. In terms of upcoming events, we are really excited about this. You may recall most Februaries, we partner with the Office of Human Rights to try to conduct some sort of community conversation around climate action and racial and social justice and equity. And this year has actually been 2 years in the making because this year is the 70th anniversary of Rosa Parks' action on the bus. And so in honor of that, on Transit Equity Day, we are going to be conducting an online discussion with, Veronica Davis is the... Veronica O. Davis, who's a transportation planner who's worked in Houston and DC and wrote a really wonderful book called Inclusive Transportation. We're going to be having a book discussion at the end of the month at the Iowa City Public Library. So anybody who wants to come in person and discuss the book there has the opportunity to do so among community members. And then we're going to have the the virtual discussion on Zoom on February 4th. And I'm really tickled here to get to call out one of your members. we reached out to Angie Smith to ask if she would like to be the community member paired with Veronica to conduct this discussion, because, we always have someone from the community talking to the national representative, knowing that this is an issue near and dear to Angie's heart. And not only is it near and dear to her heart, she had already read the book. So, Angie, would you like to add anything to that might entice others to participate in the conversation?
It is a really great book, really easy to read. I think, obviously, like I've already said, I'm really passionate about this topic. So, of course, it was of particular interest to me. But I think, especially in our city, we think a lot about equity. And so I think there's a lot of equity discussed in the book, too, equitable transportation. And inclusive transportation is the word she uses, too. But I'm really excited about the opportunity to talk to her, because I was already a fan of her. So it's really fun opportunity for me. And I think you mentioned about registering for it, and I am kind of curious how people will register for it.
For the library event, there's no registration needed. You can just show up, and they do have copies available at the library to check out. And then for the Zoom discussion, there is a Zoom link, which I can also include in the follow-up email.
Currently on the Climate Action webpage.
Okay.
The press release will go out.
Yeah. And the first 10 people who register get a free copy of the book for the virtual discussion, so, which was really wonderful.
Yeah. I have a lot of friends I think who'll be interested. So it's okay to kind of start sharing this exciting opportunity. Okay, great.
Yeah. Does anybody else have an upcoming community event that they'd like to mention while we're on the topic? I see the usual suspects shaking their heads no, so we'll say no. All right.
Wonderful. Brings us to our item of new business, mid-year presentations from the Climate Action Grant awardees. Seems like we have Iowa Valley Habitat for Humanity first.
Yeah.
Please.
And thanks to all of you for waiting patiently through all of that.
Good afternoon, everybody. Chairman Gade, is it all right if I hand something out to the rest of the commissioners? It's not on the packet. It's not in the packet.
Yes,
That's okay.
I think-
Yeah,
Acceptable?
that's fine.
All right.
I can pass it down too. Is that easier? Yep.
All right, so we received a climate action grant for what we call our building envelope. And I'm gonna kind of approach this from the perspective that you have a pretty good idea of what that is. And so I don't wanna waste your time, but if you have any questions about what I mean by that, certainly feel free to just stop me. We build a really tight, energy efficient home. And we do that for a lot of different reasons. Our primary interest is making sure that the home remains affordable. And we do that by helping to reduce the burden of utility bills. And that's really what affordable housing is about. It's not just whether you can make your payment, it's also whether you can maintain your home. It's about being able to build wealth in an asset. And if you're spending all of your money, all your disposable income on your utility bills or maintenance or other things, then all of a sudden that affordable home that Habitat for Humanity built isn't affordable anymore. And so our primary interest is in making sure that homes are affordable. And it just happens that one of the ways to do that is to build a really energy efficient home. So we built a really energy efficient envelope, and that was what our grant was used for this year. Specifically, we invested some money in spray foam insulation. All of our homes come with spray foam insulation. It's kind of our standard building procedure. But we also use funds to make some or to have some other upgrades. We have Energy Star rated windows. We also go around and seal up all of the window openings with spray foam insulation and caulk, and we are able to do that because we have volunteers, and sometimes we can just throw 5 different people at a project that a for-profit builder wouldn't want to do that. So our model of using volunteer labor really helps us out with that. What else do we have on this? So part of building a really energy efficient and tight home is that we have to install energy recovery ventilation systems. And essentially that allows or helps the home to breathe because if all the air is just trapped inside and there's no way to cycle the air out, then your home becomes a sick home is what we call them. And we want to do that. We want to do that air exchange as energy efficiently as possible. And so we use an ERV system. Some of the other things that we've talked about, you can see our pictures up there. That handsome guy in that picture right there with the blue hoodie is installing spray foam insulation around the doors. We have a hot roof, so that what we call a hot roof, I don't know if you guys are familiar with that term, but we put the insulation right up underneath the OSB, and so that helps to have a tight envelope around the home. And then we also have volunteers putting caulk around the bottom plates, again, just to put something in between those cracks so that there's not free airflow. And so that's the long and the short of what we've done. Do you guys have any questions for me?
This sounds really great, and I'm just wondering whether the energy recovery ventilators can be something that can retrofit existing housing stock.
Yes, if you go to really any reputable HVAC business, they should be able to install. It's also really good to improve air quality in the home, which I'm guessing, Jamie, you're familiar with. But it's something that can be retrofitted, and it's not nearly as expensive as you would think it would be.
I have a question generally. This is Shetty. Thank you for all the good work that you're doing. I was wondering about how many homes Habitat for Humanity builds in Iowa City, like within a year, or that the grant money actually helped with?
So our grant was for one home. The initiatives that I just described, unfortunately, are kind of expensive, and so there was only enough in the application for one home. Since we've been around since we started in 1992, we've built over 150 homes total. That exact number, I don't know. I think it's probably getting close to 200. Not all of those homes were in Iowa City. Some were in Coralville. Some were in some of the rural counties that we serve. And on average, in Iowa City, we're able to build about 3 to 5 homes each year.
Great, thank you.
Or recently, I should say.
Was this the sort of energy efficient process that you did here? Is this something new that you were learning, or is this something you had already been doing and this was just helping you to fund another one?
So this is something that we've adopted as our standard building procedures for years, well before I was around. And this just helped us to do it. Again, some of these upgrades or some of these energy efficient upgrades are just expensive, and doing it for all of our homes it makes it tough for us. And so funding sources like this and other funding sources that hopefully at some point maybe we'd be able to dip into will just ease some of that burden.
Great.
This is Grim. For those upgrades and the residents that ultimately reside in there, is there, how would I say this, a demand for those more energy efficient homes, but then in the deficiency of being able to fund those energy efficient homes, is there also like a affordability from the end resident that ends up living there? Does that make sense?
That's a good question. So regardless of, and our financing model is very unique to any other builder outside of maybe Habitat for Humanity. But we're able to structure the financing package around the income of the household. So our policies say that they won't pay more than 30%. Really, we aim for 28% of their gross income. And so we're able to calculate what their gross income is and then structure financing around it. So if they're a little bit lower income family, then we have to subsidize it a little bit more, look for other places to subsidize it just a little bit more. If they're a little bit higher income, then we have to subsidize it a little bit less, but they're still paying that same percentage out of their gross income.
So to expand on that, are there families that could afford a more environmentally friendly home, but there's not the money to actually really build those, to provide those? To those
Are you
people?
talking about outside of our program or within our program?
I would say just overall within,
Oh.
like what you're talking about.
You know,
today.
that's a good question. I think, you know, outside of low-income housing or affordable housing, I don't really know. I don't suspect that some of the initiatives that we do are commonplace because folks don't know about some of these things that they can do, or you've got kind of a mismatch incentives, right? Like the builder doesn't necessarily get a higher profit margin for educating a home buyer about that. Instead, they just start talking about things that increase the cost or increase the price of the home, and that might not necessarily be well received or lack the education from the buyer. So, you know, as far as market rate housing goes, I don't know exactly why this isn't just common, but I can speculate that there's just not enough education and demand for it.
All right, thank you so much, Scott.
All right, thank you, guys.
Okay, next up is Trinity Episcopal Church.
Hi, I'm trying to speak into the microphone. I'm Barbara Eckstein, and I'm here on behalf of Trinity Episcopal Church, which is right behind you on the corner of College and Gilbert. I can also say, just as an aside, I was one of the survey families.
And how
So-
do you commute daily?
I walk, pretty much always. I grew up in the Midwest, so. So, the church. So we are grateful to have gotten a climate action grant to replace some of the windows in the mid-20th century education wing of the building, which was not built by these folks. So it needs a lot of work to bring it up to a kind of energy efficiency that we want. So these 7 windows face a courtyard, so you can't actually even see them from the street, but we think they'll begin to make a big difference in that wing. Then we need to subsequently do the other side of the corridor that faces the Masonic building. So we haven't finished the work yet. We've asked for 2 bids. We got those bids. Our vestry, which is the church board, chose one of the bids, and so now we're waiting for next steps, but feel as though we can, in fact, get these windows put in even in the winter, because it can be done fairly efficiently. We talked to Daniel quite a bit. He's been very helpful in thinking about the education component of the grant. And he has some ideas, and one that we have is just inchoate at this point, but one that we have is to use the skills of one of our parishioners and make a video of the windows being put in, not just by the professionals, but the work that we'll be doing with the leadership of some knowledgeable people in our parish on the inside. So that's where we are. Oh, I can say one other thing. The building, the sanctuary is on the National Register of Historic Places. And so even when we work in other parts of the building, like this mid-20th century wing that wouldn't be most people's idea of historically valuable, we have lots of experience in working with historic preservation folks at the city.
Would you mind, Barbara, just speaking a little more about how the historic preservation aspect of this has impacted your grant? One of the reasons we're interested in having folks come, or one of the benefits we see in having folks like you come and talk about your experience with the grant is shortly we'll be asking members of the commission to volunteer for the committee that helps score them, and understanding what the difficulties may be or the or things that are really easy to implement in the grants is really helpful when they go to score them in the future. And I think Trinity has had sort of a unique experience because of the historic preservation. The big takeaway is you can do your project, it's just taken a bit more work. Would you speak to that?
Yeah, I can try to. I also live in a historic neighborhood in a historic house, so I do this thing in many walks of my life. I think that our experience is to communicate with the staff members in the Historic Preservation Office early and often, and then that also puts us in communication with the commission. So we never imagine that we're going to do anything without talking to them. Never. No, nothing. So that's actually very useful. Of course, they know us, and the building is so proximate to City Hall that, you know, they can just come over there. So when we started this, when we got this grant, when Daniel, and I guess you too, Sarah, came over and looked at what we intended to do, then Jessica Bristow from the Historic Preservation Office came also. So she could say, here's what the materials need to be, this is what we would like to see, and we can say, well, this window that's already been installed looks like this, and so on. That's our strategy. Seems to work well for us. They're only windows, yeah. I mean, it's really important windows, but yeah.
And maybe you don't, then that's totally okay, but do you have any idea, you know, how much you expect this to help your maybe energy bills, or is that a primary motivation of this goal, of this project?
Well, it certainly would help. The building has been jerry-rigged over so many decades that we're trying to walk back decisions that were made a long time ago so that we can have a building that we can have that kind of conversation about. So it's got like 4 separate furnaces and all different kinds of windows and structures. I don't know what the height of the ceiling is in the sanctuary, but it's very high. So there's just a lot to think about. But we do think about it, and our part of our thinking is to secure the envelope as much as we can so that then it makes sense to put solar panels on the south-facing roof of the parish hall, which is quite steep and big. You can't see it in that photograph. It faces College Street. The building is a kind of square around a courtyard. So we do think about it. We're excited that we last year got a new roof on the parish hall, so a new roof of that scale is quite expensive, so that's a heavy lift for us. So it made no sense for us to even utter the word solar panels until we replaced the roof. So,
Yeah, no, that's great to hear, though. This is like a key stepping stone in a thought-out process that's getting you towards something that would be very energy
Yeah.
efficient, it sounds like. So,
Yeah.
yeah, that's great. Great to hear.
yeah, yeah. I'm always thinking of what the board members would say as words come out of my mouth. Yeah. Can I
Any
answer?
other questions? Well, I'll just thank you and add a small note that, you say they're just windows, but we just sent out a sustainability newsletter today that was talking about some of the achievements under the Carter administration. And one of the interesting things we learned in researching that was that there was no such thing as energy efficient windows before President Carter initiated research into the field. And it's saved, do you remember the exact figure, Diane?
1 trillion.
Yeah, I think it's $1 trillion for all the energy efficiency things he's done, and like several $1 billion for Americans as a result of like that one little thing, which, just speaks to the power of these kinds of interventions. So
Yeah.
it seems fitting today that this would come up.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, we have one more.
Yes. Neighborhood Centers of Johnson County.
Jana Garles, and I'm the Early Childhood Director at Neighborhood Centers of Johnson County, and this is... I'm Sarah Furnish. I'm the 3-year-old teacher at the Broadway Neighborhood Center. And I'm just going to start by, this was a collaborative kind of brainchild that came about basically from Sarah's passion in science, nature, education for early childhood, and her passion for gardening. And so it came about as she was, in 2023, was taking children and lots of materials to Weatherby Park every day. And in that, we were seeing that it was kind of inconvenient to teach children about all these things and haul all the materials to Weatherby Park. And so getting together with a collaborative group at the Broadway Center, we came up with this, and we were able to write this. And so I'm going to let Sarah speak about the work and the project she does, because it's her passion.
Yeah, that year there was a lot of heat waves, so sometimes we couldn't go up there because we are not allowed to take the children outside. Granted, that could happen at where we're at now, but we can go outside for very short periods of time or early before it gets too hot. There's a little more flexibility. So the funny thing that happened that year that I just remember while I was sitting there, I was like, oh, I remember this one little boy, he said he wanted to be a scientist. And I said, what, really? And he says, yeah, it's magic. So sometimes that's kind of what I think about with the gardening, is that, they really get to see something happen. This magic just happened, even though we know the science behind it. But I also try to teach them the science behind it. Let's see, we have a worm bin, which we always use our special worm dirt for our garden. And they get to learn things about what are root vegetables, vines, bushes, what do seeds need to grow. They learn garden vocabulary words, parts of the plants, plant life cycle. And another thing that I always think is really important is these guys are 3-year-olds. So almost all normal healthy food that we eat is gross and disgusting. So research says that it takes 20 to 30 food exposures for children this age to even look at it and not want to barf. And then, so with putting healthy food in front of them, giving them all different ways to engage with it, it becomes familiar and less scary. And so that in the future, hopefully they say, oh, yeah, I've made broccoli before. This is good stuff. One thing I like is that we can give the kids a lot of choices. They can talk about the different vegetables and things that we can plant. What do they like? What's familiar for them? Last year we had a little boy who said, I like eggplant. So we planted a lot of eggplants. He's from the Sudanese community. If you know our center, we are in neighborhoods of need, and a lot of them are also immigrants. So that's another reason why I feel like it's very important for them to have these food exposures, because
They might not see any of the food that we see anywhere except for at school. So sometimes I ask them, you want to make something with it? One year we made zucchini pizza. Both years we've made salads. They can bring it in, wash it off, tear it up, and ranch makes everything great for kids that age. But they really like it. They feel pretty proud of themselves that they've accomplished, like, putting something on our table. Also, another amazing component of this, of our collaboration, is our I want to say maintenance, but he's kind of a many hat wearer.
Jack of all trades.
Yeah.
Jay Herman is his
Jay
name.
Herman.
Yep.
And we had you said it was maybe like 9 by 25 foot dead zone on the north side of our building. So we went through, he cut down all the extra weed trees that have been growing by the fence. And I wish that we had, you can see the little bit of the boxes there, but if you saw it in full, it's really, really beautiful. He went all out, and we have some big, beautiful arches in between each one, so we can grow climbing plants. Let's see, I did want to mention the challenges. The one challenge that I found, so we had a container garden that was covering our deck, which is enormous, and they were thriving, but then we kept waiting and waiting and waiting. When's it going to be done? When's the money going to come? How do we do this? And then, so it was about mid-July before we got them into the boxes. So for me, I would just say the time of year, because really you want to kind of be starting your plan in March and then be able to get them in the ground in June or May even sometimes. But otherwise, things went very well, and the kids love it. That's the best part. They just ask me all the time, can we go in the garden? I'm like, no, it's dead. We can do it next year. And then, the things that we'll be doing in the future, we'll be continuing to maintain it. And then we do still have the rain barrel that we'll be putting in because we need water closer to that spot too. Any questions?
I don't have a question. I just think it's really cool. We live in such like a technological society, and we're all inside all the time on our screens and stuff. Like I have a niece and 3 nephews, and they live in the suburbs of Indiana, and they're just inside all the time. And just seeing this, I know that when I was a kid, it would be really cool to have something like this to get you outside and like in contact with the sun and the sky and like the earth and stuff. Like that's really great. So.
And I'd say most of our kids live in apartments or mobile homes, and so there isn't a lot of that outdoor space to access for them. And they do spend a lot of time in the inside, so we definitely value this. I've been at Neighborhood Centers for over 20 years, and this space that we built it in has kind of been was a dead zone. And we figured, what can we ever put back there? And so for the longest time, it's been just nothing, and like, just don't go back there. And now it's this beautiful, serene place that like staff love, children love, the parents love it. So we're just so grateful for it.
And sometimes the kids ask if they can take a vegetable home. I'm like, of course you can take a vegetable home. Hopefully next year it'll be a little more abundant because we'll get things in the earlier time. And then we can do more family activities, have them we try to do family activities regularly, but it's nice when they can incorporate some of their foods from their culture and share those with others, as well as being able to distribute some of it and let the kids take it home as well.
This is wonderful. Do you have any plans of expanding this to other locations, or have other locations had similar programs like this?
So we only have our other site, our Pheasant Ridge site. There is a small garden area off that. It's not as nice and swanky as this one. We kind of did it on our own, so it's valuable at both communities because we do have input from our families. Like, we'd really like this. This is what we're familiar with. Would you guys be able to grow this? So our Pheasant Ridge could use some work, our site garden, but this is the first one at Broadway, and it's wonderful.
All right, well, thank you so much for coming in and giving us that update.
Thank you.
So as I mentioned, next month we'll be hearing from our final 3, and then we will be asking for volunteers to help us score some of the climate action grants. And we'll give you a little more detail on what that process entails when we ask that. But hopefully this is getting you all excited to do that. I did want to mention, you heard from Trinity about their education component. As you may recall, one of the changes we've made in recent years to the climate action grants is that our staff go out and consult with each awardee about what an appropriate education effort might be, or a way we can collaborate on that. And I just wanted to mention, because Scott Hawes didn't have a chance to say so, that for the education component for Habitat for Humanity, he ended up working, his staff ended up working with our communications staff to produce a really wonderful video about the value of energy efficiency homes. Would you like me to include a link to that in the follow-up email? All right. And I think that brings us to everybody's favorite time of year, the selection of our new chair and vice chair. Those of you who are eligible, I did email ahead of time. Hopefully that inspired some folks to take a closer look at it. Just as a bit of a procedural reminder, given that we only do this once a year, generally the way we work it is we'll start with chair, and somebody can self-nominate themselves. I know we're all Midwesterners, so probably someone will nominate someone else. That either way is fine. If someone does nominate you, you are free to say, yes, that sounds great, or I've got a lot on my plate, maybe some other person that I will now name will be a better fit. And then once we have some sense, we need someone to formally move for someone to be nominated as chair, someone to second, and then we need a vote, and then we'll do it all over again for vice chair. That's about as much help as I can offer. So, Jamie, you get to take us away on the process.
Okay. Are there any nominations for, do we want to do vice chair first or chair first? Does it matter?
Doesn't matter.
Okay.
Up to you.
We'll just start with chair. Are there any nominations for chair?
I'd like to nominate Zach Harrelson for chair.
Thank you. Yeah, no, I'm very interested. I'm passionate about the commission. I'd be interested in kind of taking on some more responsibility, see how that goes. I'm also curious, Jamie, I mean, you were vice chair last year, right? If you are interested in chair, like stepping into the chair role, I think that's kind of a common flow, and I'd be interested in the vice chair position as well, like to, I don't know, play nice and follow that flow too, so.
I am open. If there are other nominations for me, that's fine. I don't know if I'll nominate myself. I don't know, right? We're like Midwesterners, but.
Well, then I'll say it more forcefully,
Yeah.
and I will nominate you as chair, because I think you have done an excellent job as vice chair.
Well, thank you.
So, yeah, but
Okay.
I haven't spoken to you specifically to see if you're interested, so yeah.
I agree it's a conversation about like either of you two, like
Yeah.
in one of those roles, so. Yeah, I mean, I guess I would nominate Jamie too. You've been doing a good job, like, yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, I don't want to get in the way if you feel like you would like to do chair.
I've got 2 years left, like you've got one.
Okay.
So, no, absolutely not. Don't be overly
Well,
polite.
we could put it to a vote. Let's see, are there other nominations for chair? Let's make it spicy. No one.
This is Shetty. I'll move to vote for Gate as chair.
I'll second Grimm.
So would this be a yes, no, yay, nay vote?
It'd be a year or nay for,
Can we have more discussion then, or? No. If you'd like. Well, no, I just didn't, so you're saying
Yeah.
you would be okay with chair, or you?
I
Or
would,
are there
well,
other people interested in vice chair, or any, yeah?
are there other people interested in vice chair?
No.
Looking at you, yeah.
Okay.
Are you? No, I'm not interested either.
Okay. Then I say we just vote, yeah. Vote on Jamie and then,
Okay, well, I don't want to like take it, but, okay. Okay, do we continue the vote on chair?
yes, so the motion on the floor is for Gade to serve as chair, and we just need to take a vote on that. And then we can move to moving and seconding for vice chair.
We will continue the motion. Let's see, so we're seconded.
All those in favor?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Everybody, okay. Well, thank you. I'm sorry, it's always awkward. But thank you. Let's move on to vice chair. Nominations for Zach Harrelson as vice chair. I will move.
nominate Zach Harrelson
Yes.
for vice chair.
Okay, wonderful.
Do we need a second for the nomination?
I will second if you've
Okay.
started the first, yep.
And then I also move to vote.
Okay, wonderful. All in favor of Zach Harrelson as vice chair?
Aye.
Wonderful.
Oh, congratulations.
Thank you.
And thank you. That was like the least painful round. Amazing. Great. Well, welcome aboard to our chair and vice chair. And for our new members, we actually had a prolonged discussion prior to this about moving the nominations to December. So you'll have a chance to participate in that more fully and potentially even put yourselves forward at the end of the year. So, or awkwardly, have someone else put you forward. It all works. Speaking of which, that brings us to old business.
Yeah, discussion of 2025 climate action meeting time and dates. So are we discussing, or do you have a set forth discussion on when?
No, just that we had been previously discussing, and I know I mentioned this when I met with both of you, moving our meeting times from 3:30 to a time that's outside of work hours to maybe potentially better allow for members of the public to attend, or to broaden our applicant pool for folks who want to sit on the commission. It is not anything, and I do want to reiterate this, it's not anything we have to do. It's not anything we have to do right now. We can always table it. Or you could, after some discussion, decide that you want to change the meeting time, but you want to change it at a specific date, knowing that all of you have arranged your calendars conceivably around this particular meeting time. So you could do something like, say, we'd like to change the meeting time starting in May or June to allow people time to adjust their calendars. But in particular, this item was tabled in a previous meeting because the current commission, or then current commission members wanted to hear from the incoming members if you had thoughts or preferences on this. So lucky you, you're in the hot seat in your very first meeting.
So I understand I say Krylov is now commenting, right? Give my name? Yeah, I looked at this list of where all the meetings are, and I realized that I've had in the past good results for this, where you want the public and but also professionals, possibly. Not just the public, but people who are working and in town, and that whole problem with commuting at night and going home for dinner. I've seen really good results with 12:30 to 2, especially since the first part, in the beginning, you have public commentary. So like members of the public can do that at lunch rather than at the end or somewhere in the middle. So from 12:30 to 1. So I just wanted to say this could be a little bit of an outlier, not competing for the same time. That's it, just to add it, throw it into the, did you want to say something?
I don't have a particular recommendation at all. I mean, as a retired person, it's easy for me to be available on almost any schedule, although I stay awake sometimes better than other times. But I really think your schedules are much more important than mine, so I'd be happy with whatever you choose.
Sarah, would we be able to trial it out and just see how certain times go, and if we find that, whatever threshold that might be, that we're having a harder time, could we move it?
Yeah, I mean, there's no limit to how often you change it. My best recommendation would be to not do it too often. Maybe do like a half year before thinking to change it again. I can confirm that if you'd like.
Okay.
I'm curious, Zach, given that you were just elected vice chair and you commute here from Cedar Rapids, how 12:30 might work for you?
I'm pretty fortunate to be pretty flexible. I'm not trying to dominate the schedule conversation. I can work from home and kind of block off times if I need to.
Okay, thank you.
I think that would be a little difficult for me. Right now I'm working across the river at the hospital. And just, lately commute-wise, I've actually been walking. So that'd be like several hours out of the workday, unfortunately, that I think would be kind of tricky for me personally. That's just what I'm thinking.
I would say for the middle of the day would be very challenging for me as well. I could maybe get here by noon, but I'd probably have to leave early. And so I could do the beginning possibly of a meeting, but would need to leave early.
Those are fair comments. I just want to point out, you all are selected to be representative of a cross-section of the community. So chances are, if it's hard for some of you, it'd be hard for many others as well. I think previously we had discussed potentially moving it to 5:30. Did others have feelings on that, or do we want to keep it the same? Do we want to take this up again in 6 months?
This is Murray. I mean, I know it works particularly well for me, the 3:30 to 5, just because I have other things that go on later in the evening. I can probably make that work, but it's not my preference.
I would also have to agree with that too. Evenings are difficult, but with it being once a month, I could make it work too. But it is tough having a little one and having to be home.
I too would have a hard time because that's where I get to meet PTOs and things of that nature, so.
It sounds like we're leaning toward keeping it at 3:30. Am I reading the room correctly there?
Or is there like a middle? Like
I think 4:30 would be okay for me. I mean,
Or 4.
or 4. We could try 4, yes.
Part of the reason we broached this discussion is because we're anticipating wanting to solicit some public feedback as part of our comprehensive climate action plan. And adjusting the meeting schedule is just one tool in that toolbox. If we wanted to elect to keep it at a same or a similar time, what we would probably want to do is then just have a little discussion about how else could we meet the public? Could we have like a one-off meeting at a particular time and date for commission members to be present as well as members of the public? Or maybe we do it twice a year, some special outside of this meeting time meeting. And I will say I'll probably know more about what that process looks like the next time we meet, since we're having the initial kickoff meeting later this week with that consultant.
Sarah, I don't know if this is possible, but is there a way to change the time of public comment during the meeting?
Oh, sure. I think we could easily move it to, I don't know if you noticed, but I regularly manipulate when we talk about old and new business based on not wanting to keep people here longer than they have to be. So we could move public comment to the end, if that's what you're thinking.
I was just thinking if there's a way, if any member of the public wanted to come and talk, if there was a way to move it towards the end, if that would align better when, folks would be off of work, but also work
Or
for us.
given how often it actually happens, have 2 slots in there, like one at the
Sure.
beginning, if someone wants to come and then leave, so they don't have to sit through the whole thing.
Sure.
But then have a backup slot in case like someone comes in late.
It occurs to me moving it to the end would have the advantage of clearing up some confusion. Like today, we have folks who come from the public and they don't know if they're supposed to get up then or if they're supposed to wait until their presentation. We try to coach them on that, but there still is, you can see people like eyeing the microphone in that moment, like, is it now?
Sure.
True.
Nadia?
That would clear up my concern
Yeah,
about the later time.
okay.
So would the idea be to move to 4 o'clock with public comment at the end so that somebody getting off work could conceivably be here by like 5, between 5 and 5:30 to offer public comment?
Yeah, if we start the meeting and there are no members of the public, could we move public comment to the end at that time? Or are we not allowed to alter the agenda during
No,
the meeting?
I'll double check on it,
Okay.
but I think we could move it to the end. And I think the advantage of formally doing that is that a member of the public looking at it who might think, well, I have no hope of making it there at 3:30, if they see it at the end of the meeting, might say, I could be there at the end to offer comment.
Yes.
Maybe even the same if folks are here at the start of the meeting, potentially could open it up at the time
Right.
and then open it again.
Yeah, I just feel bad making someone sit through the whole meeting
Right.
if they just want to say one thing.
Yeah,
That's
very
true.
Very true.
But, I don't know.
If it could be both, yeah, that could be nice, I suppose.
Sarah, I do like your idea. If there's something coming up, for instance, where public comment is desirable, of having like maybe a special meeting time for special cases, perhaps. Because while I like this idea, I also think that when I look at meetings that are happening, I don't necessarily look at like when things are timed within the meeting, I'm looking at like when the meeting is, like scheduled. So I might not like register like, oh, if I, show up at 5, they'll still be in the meeting, and so I can, you know what I mean? So, so if we're wanting that specifically, I think it would probably be good. I'm fine with everything else personally, but just for maybe include your idea in the mix too. So.
Yeah, like a listening session for feedback on the plan or whatever.
Yeah.
Cool. All right.
It's a good idea.
No, this is excellent. This is all excellent thinking. So I think we just need to settle on a meeting time for going forward. And I will double check that we can move public comment to later in the meeting, but I'm pretty sure we can.
Okay. Do we want to?
I'm just kind of curious on a
Yes.
conversational, was I the only one that wants later? I might be, right? Yeah.
I mean, I'm not opposed to it, certainly. Like, I'd personally fine with it. And I do think there's value to just like if we have like a 5:30 start time, yeah, there's just more likelihood of consistent, maybe public comments showing up. So I'm certainly okay with it. But if there's people on the board or on the commission rather
The
who
only one
can't
that
make
you
it,
were you were
I
flexible.
guess we have to work around that too. So.
Yeah.
This is Shetty. I'm flexible, but I do prefer Mondays right now in my schedule.
I prefer them too, because I just posted our whole year's agenda on the city calendar. I'm thinking like how much revising I'm going to have to do, which is fine. I'm happy to do it. It's my job, but yeah. I think if we just change one thing, all kidding aside, like if we leave it at Monday, it's nice to have some consistency for people who know to look for these things, rather than putting it totally in a different slot. So I heard 4 and 4:30 floated. Was there a preference between the two?
I think you preferred 4
I
earlier.
preferred 4, but I don't know how other people.
I could do 4:30. I mean, that would be okay. I don't, Yeah.
It'll work. Yeah, I was just saying preference.
yeah, preference
that
would
work,
be,
though.
yeah, same.
That 4, sorry. I can make that work too. Yeah, I mean, 3:30 work has been pretty flexible with letting me do that too, so I can make any of those work really, personally.
Do we want to put it to a vote on a specific time, and if it doesn't pass, that's okay, we could go back and revise? Do we want to try for 4 or 4:30 first? It's a tough one.
We're making up for the chair and vice chair.
Yes. Okay. Graham, were you saying that later times are tough for you?
I can make 4 or 4:30 work. I just wouldn't want to go as late as 5.
Okay. Let's see, so if it was 4:30, we would end at 6.
Yes, if it's 4:30, we end at 6. Well, actually, we could always shorten the meetings too. We could make them 60 rather than 90 minutes.
I feel like we always use the 90 minutes,
Yeah,
Yeah.
personally.
yeah,
Okay.
that's valid. So if it's 4:30, we would end at 6, and if it's 4, we would end at 5:30. And because we have this wonderful survey data about commuting habits, I can tell you the average commute for people living in Iowa City is 10 minutes.
10 minutes. People could.
That would be really nice, really nice.
So might we just take a preference poll
Sure.
between 4 and 4:30? Not that we would be against one, but we just prefer, see which one
Yeah.
comes up.
Can we do a raise of hands before a formal vote?
Yeah.
Okay, wonderful. Preference on 4 o'clock.
Okay, then someone with their
Okay.
hand up needs to move.
Harrelson moved
Thank
to
you.
vote for 4 o'clock.
30 seconds.
Okay, all in favor of 4 o'clock meeting time? Start.
Aye.
Aye. Okay.
Was that Shetty for second?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, well, 4 o'clocks then. Will that be starting in February?
Yeah, how about that? We'll start in February, and I'll update the calendar. And I will send you, how about this? Rather than, since I already barraged you ahead of the holidays with all those calendar reminders, one of the things we're implementing this year that I hope will be helpful is we gave you the whole year of calendar invites ahead of time. And then when we send out the agenda, I'm going in and attaching the agenda packet. That will send you a renewed reminder. That way you get reminded twice, essentially. Why don't I wait to change the times on those until I attach the agenda? That way or would anybody prefer me just to make all of them 4 now?
Do what works for you.
Yeah, we can block it off on our own calendars to keep it.
Okay. Well, if you're going to block it off, I may as well update it anyway. I'll get those updates made.
Wonderful. Well, we're at recap. We'll confirm the next meeting time and location of Monday, February 3rd at 4 p.m. here at Emma J. Havitt Hall. Any action items for the commission, working groups, and staff?
Yes, I'm going to be sending out a follow-up email that includes the wording for our legislative priorities, the number to call for the Capitol, the video for Habitat for Humanity. I feel like there was one other. Oh, yes. And the link to sign up for the inclusive transportation. Am I forgetting anything? All right,
I
good.
don't believe so. All right, well, motion to adjourn?
Second.
Wonderful. You want to do a motion first? We'll do motion.
Oh, I thought you
You'll
were
move?
moving.
Wonderful, we got a second? Okay. All in favor of adjourning?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, aye, thank you.
My first motion.
Thanks, everyone. Happy New Year.